This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas.
Good morning, truth seekers and true crime junkies. Welcome back to another episode of Hit the Road, Jack, Finding the Zodiac. We have a lot today for you. We're going to cover some solves on the last couple letters that we just went over in the last couple weeks. Today we have Harriette Souchet with us by phone. Good morning, Harriette. Hello.
Yeah, I was about to call you when you called me. So anyways, I'm here. Okay. Lots to do. Lots to catch up on for everybody.
I know. I was getting a little concerned because this entire episode is based on history I have no knowledge of. So I was like, where's my history, people?
Okay. Don't worry.
I'm glad to have you here. Thank you for... Go ahead.
So you're going to be using the one that I actually sent to Herming House, the solve?
I'm not sure. It's whichever you gave me is in the presentation. So
yeah, that's the one I sent you, and it does say to SLTP, South Lake Tahoe Police Department, Herming House, because I tried sending this information to him and others linked to where Jack is saying where we ended up going a month afterwards. Anyways,
I don't think we're on that part yet. Let's wait to see what we got for solves today, because I don't know that those letters let us. We'll see. Anyways, I wanted to kind of just pick up where I left off from last week. I did actually watch the Netflix series on Get Gotti, which everybody knows Gotti. It was one of the major mob crime players, I want to say circa the 80s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, my biggest take from that whole entire thing, while we watched, some very, very evil people get away with all kinds of things by paying off the right people, including winning cases against the district attorney's office on multiple occasions by paying off jurors and such. But one of the things that I took from that is that they'd indicated the mob actually leaves the body out to show the disrespect. I thought that was an interesting statement, because we've been talking for quite some time in these cases how the bodies were laid out, publicly displayed, so that they could be found, that they could be seen, so that they could be disrespected, basically. So this is kind of a method, right?
They're leaving a coded message. If the body has dead fish on it, saying in code and theory, that means your other family members are going to end up dead too. Get the message.
And that's kind of like I think that even though I didn't know a lot about the Kennedys growing up, I mean, I understood that they were assassinated, and I understood that one brother after the next was consistently being picked off, right?
Yeah, they were, definitely sending a message. They were not happy with what the Kennedys were doing. And
they made sure to take everybody.
Yeah, so if I understand correctly, because you're speaking of Gotti, we're talking about the mob. It was Carlos Marcello who was saying, well, in order to get the head of the dog, we have to, they were removing, because the head of the dog they believed was Bobby Kennedy. So they killed his brother to get at Bobby Kennedy. And
right.
They were definitely sending messages their way. Keep going. We're going to do more.
Exactly. So with that being said, knowing that the mob leaves the body out to show disrespect, I think what they were talking about there is that typically speaking, there was some unspoken rule in the mob that you didn't kill a man in front of his house because his children and wife would come out and see him. However, depending on the disrespect that they felt that individual had done, there were there were players they did actually kill right in front of the house, to send that message
Mhm.
of disrespect. So we've seen
Mhm.
bodies that have been laid out, you know, close to the police department. We've seen bodies that have been laid out on public display, like Black Dahlia, like all of these things. And we know that many of these individuals were, in fact, related or associated to somebody in the mob, right? I mean, Elizabeth Short was
Mm.
running with a bad crowd.
Yeah, she was hanging out with them, but giving intel.
Right.
So that's what I'm understanding. She was going to tell who was going to kill Bugsy. I think she thought she was going to get paid for that. That's my long-standing theory now. So she was going
Gotcha.
to tell, and then they took her out.
Mm. But
Mhm.
he wasn't killed until when? Bugsy? 40.
Bugsy was killed not long after that. So
Right.
she knew, and she knew that he was going to be taken out, and I think she knew, according to what I'm seeing through Jack's world, that it was going to be done by Meyer Lansky. So a
Gotcha.
lot was on the line, and then they took her out and they cut her. They did the brutal things, cut her up a certain way. It was to leave a message. You know,
Right.
so.
Right. And
Mhm,
to disrespect her, basically, for sure. Like, you don't leave somebody cut
mhm,
in half, sprawled out naked for the world to see with the damage that you've done to her, without that having
mhm,
sent a message. Exactly. So
mhm.
I just wanted to touch on another reply. I've got this Moonlight gal, and you know, Harriet, how I feel about Moonlight. I keep having to
Okay.
deal. I keep having to deal with her. Like, I sent her to spam so I don't see her messages. But she's had this knack since the day one that she introduced herself to me. She would go onto one of my YouTube channel videos, and she would post a comment, and then when I'd go to find the comment, it wouldn't be there. And I'm thinking, what is going on? What is YouTube doing with my comments? I can't find them. And it kept happening with her. And there was a couple other people. And then I finally just kind of got caught on to what it is that they're doing. So she replies to somebody's comment in order to disparage me, then rips it down so that I can't respond or I don't know. I don't even want to say defend myself, because she doesn't have anything that's defendable, honestly speaking. So she posted this
Mhm,
message here recently, and then she ripped it down once again, which is her notorious thing to do. She doesn't want to be answered. She doesn't want answers had for the statements that she's made.
mhm,
And quite frankly, I probably would have torn something like this down off of my YouTube, because anything that's disparaging the character of another individual versus actually addressing the information doesn't belong there to begin with. People are not coming
mhm,
to here to listen to people have infighting and arguing like on Tom Voigt's message board. Nobody wants any of that mess.
mhm,
So this is her comment. She
mhm.
said the content and documentation is not in capital letters, being put in order where it makes logical sense. Now, how many times have I told you that I need to do this in a chronological order?
A million times, and you'll have no idea what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks with what I've got. But
I know,
we
but
believe we were doing chronological order.
I am,
Okay, but
I
yes,
am,
it is
and
important.
I do, and there are things that are sometimes taken out of order in order to make a point or to substantiate some other portion of the
Mhm,
case. But it's very rare, and I have been literally walking through this case from 1945, and we are now in 1970. And my biggest complaint to her is that she was flooding me with information. A, information I already had. B, incoherent, not in order, completely just a dumping of ramblings on me. Now, she emailed me and about four other people, which included Sandy Betts, not too long ago. And it was funny because I responded back, you told me you didn't want to talk to me anymore. Why are you still emailing me? Either way, I'm done. I'm not dealing with this mess anymore. You're not going to get my attention if you're going to bash, harass, or like I said, not introduce stuff as we're going through. She's obviously watching the videos because she is going on to YouTube and she's posting underneath those videos at that time. Now you know what era I'm in. Send me that information if that's what you want to send me. Either way, it is in chronological order so that it does make sense. She then goes to say continuous gaslighting of those that comment or comments removed. I about fell over. Like, seriously, you're the one removing your own comments, not me. I have never taken a comment away from you. I have never removed anything that, like I said, if you bash character, then yes, your comment doesn't belong there. You got a question to ask. I answer it to the best of my ability. She says the author does not like challenges. Are you kidding me? What am I doing with this show if I don't enjoy a challenge? I mean, that I love challenges. And
the
then she
author
says,
is okay. So, yeah, you're the host. You're not. I mean, you're like me. I mean, I don't
but she's
consider
calling me
myself an author of this stuff.
but
She's calling you an
that's what she's.
author. Okay.
Yeah, she's calling me an author, does not like challenges, and will try to humiliate anyone poking holes as to trying to connect the dots. That I had tears in my eyes. I was laughing so hard. She's on the same track I am. She believes Jack's part of this entire thing. She believes Jack is the Zodiac, and she thinks I'm trying to poke holes in trying to connect the dots. I'm like, hold up. In this whole thing, didn't I pay for this whole thing so that I could put the dots together? And if she had good dots, I'd use those dots. I promise you.
I know.
Oh my
we used to call
goodness.
these somebody there to
Trolls.
flame the board. You know,
Trolls. Yeah, yeah, trolls.
definitely. So did you ever? I mean,
well,
I know
obviously
that
she's obviously the only one trying to humiliate anyone by posting these things and ripping them down, or at least secretly trying to disparage me to other people, as she did. She posted a reply to Cat Daddy Steve's comment so that he clearly would see it, and then she can turn around and I don't know. I don't have time for these individuals. So let's go back to the presentation. All right, so where we left off last week was in leads. And one of the things that the leads said in the FBI identification division was latent fingerprint section is required to advise how many latent prints believed to be of the Zodiac are available, and if there is any possibility of classifying these latent prints to the extent of permitting a search through the FBI fingerprint files in an effort to identify the Zodiac. I thought this was extremely important because we knew early on with Black Dahlia, the FBI was capable of identifying her because she had done some civilian work for the military, right?
Yeah, yep.
They had her fingerprints on file.
Yeah, I believe she was at a PBX briefly. Yeah, well, good. But where are we in this deep?
Right. So the FBI would have hit on somebody had they had fingerprints like the SFPD and the Napa Sheriff's Department's claimed. The Zodiac actually is now more believable when he says he hasn't left any fingerprints or otherwise behind. Now, one of two things can be happening here. Either A, the FBI either A, the Zodiac is not correct and there's a cover up, so his fingerprints would never have been discovered to begin with, because we know that Jack's fingerprints are on file with his military records. We know that there's a lot of military connections here. The individual was obviously in the military, and the military would obviously have their fingerprints. So why this case did not come to fruition or solve is one of those cases. Or just like the Zodiac said, he didn't leave any good prints behind, and all the prints they have would never have connected anybody to this case to begin with.
If I remember correctly, in Grace Smith's original Zodiac book, he had what was looking like a picture of, I believe it's the taxi letter, but anyways, you saw clearly that there was a palm print there, and then you saw part of like the tip.
But what if it's not his?
Too.
What if it's not his?
Well, you saw part of the tip of the finger was off, and that's about the time period that Jack reportedly, depending on whose story, had his fingertips damaged. So I'm looking and saying, okay, there are prints there. They were saying this, like you said, the SFPD and they didn't find any prints, and you can see it in Grace Smith's original Zodiac. You see prints right there. So anyway,
But that lends me back to, were they actually the Zodiacs? I mean, clearly, and I don't know if they take palm prints in the military. We know they take a thumbprint on their and fingerprints. I don't know if they actually take palm prints or would have had something like that in possession to actually make a cross connection to any files. I really, I'm not sure about that. But this leads me to believe they didn't have any good prints. Otherwise, it would have cross connected to somebody in the military that they had prints on.
But what if this is okay? This is the time period where Jack's fingerprints got damaged, and tips are missing. He's playing semantics there. You're not going to have full prints because my hands are messed up. That's
Right.
been a workable theory for a long time. So you got two stories that's possible.
Well, here's the thing with fingerprints. You have to do such severe damage that you actually damage the dermal layer of the skin that actually creates the cells that make the ridges on your fingers. So the damage would have to be so severe as to have burnt down at least 7 layers of skin into the area where it regenerates itself and keeps creating those. So you can have a slight cut on your finger that doesn't go down to the epidermis, and that scar will heal. So when you're doing fingerprints on somebody, you may find damage to fingers that aren't consistent with previous records. But if it heals and it doesn't cut into the regenerative layer, then you actually have it will grow back eventually once that area of skin heals and sloughs off. If it damages the dermal layer, it will be permanent. So I don't know to what degree. I know you were talking about Jack having dipped his hands into acid or he claimed to have opened a hot radiator cap and burnt both of his hands, right?
Yeah, that's one story, but another story that was more logical was when he was working and handling hazardous wastewater, which was radiation. They got damaged.
When was that?
So, because when he was working at Atomic Energy, I believe that was the reason. If I remember what Dennis said, that he had to leave. I mean, he got injured there, so you can. That's another story.
Dennis wouldn't have known about that because he wasn't around in '63 while Jack.
So that's why you got two stories, and but I think that's more logical that he was handling something that was radiation and got burned that way. But or maybe it's both. But but if you think of the Singapore letter where Jack is sending his prints, you'll see some of the tips are damaged, but you still see the same print. I swear, you see the same.
I think I feel like all he did was the 2 areas below the actual tips. So it looks like it's cut off and it has no fingertips, but you got the 2 positions both beneath and above the knuckle, making it look like there are no fingerprints at all. But I'll go back and review that. Anyway, so I want to.
But just you can quickly compare it with the original Graysmith if you got a book. And you'll see the same print. One of the fingers, the same exact print in what was sent to Tom Boyd in the Singapore letter.
I do have his book. I will take a look and see if there's enough ridge detail for me to make any type of an identification based on that. So let's move on. I wanted to point out at this point that for some reason we started getting duplicate letters from the Zodiac. So on June 26, 1970, we're going to be discussing the annihilating or the I shot a man in a parked car with a 38 letter, and that's the solve that Harriette and I are going to work on today. But I noticed that this one mentioned 12 victims. I noticed that this one mentioned. Thank you.
Because there's surprises coming. They'll come in the next
Harriette. So on June 26, oh my God. On June 26, 1970, he wrote a letter stating 12 victims. But then in March 22nd of 1971, almost a year later, he sends the sought victim 12 card. So he's now mentioned 12 victims twice. And at a year apart, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. Then on July 26th of 1970, he sends the Buttons letter, which claims 13 victims. And then on October 5th of 1970, he turns around and sends another postcard claiming 13 victims. Then by October of 1970, we have the Halloween card, which states 14 victims. So I'm saying, I'm wondering what these messages are about if he's clearly already made the statement that the victims.
Code.
I know. This is what I'm trying to.
Let's just.
This is what I'm trying
doing because Yeah.
Okay, this is what I'm trying to get.
Leading one way.
This is Harriette, you're gonna have to let me speak. This is what I'm getting at as far as you and the codes and what you guys are finding, that these messages are alluding to something else, because he already said 12. He already said 13. Now he comes back and follows up with another postcard that's stating the same references, which makes absolutely no sense. It's almost like redoing something. And for what purpose? I believe, like you believe, that it has to do with obviously a coded message.
Definitely. So
we were talking about Graysmith. We were talking about Graysmith's version A compared to the 2001 Voinovich letter, and the version of Graysmith's letter in his first book on this annihilating, or I shot a man in a parked car, and how it compared to the actual Voinovich letter and the letter A that was found in it. I know that due in part to this 2001 letter, it is likely that they realize Zodiac is still around. Zodiac is still writing people. And the anthrax letters, which the public had felt so strongly the Zodiac Killer had indeed written, this becomes a pertinent time frame in 2001 when Dennis believed that once he identified Jack, could show this belltop A was consistent and that there were belltop A's in the communications. All of a sudden, the communications previous to 2001 started being ripped down from the internet. So 2001 is a triggering. Yes, it's a triggering point for some reason, and it's caused a mass dump. We had Voight, who went and dumped his entire website that he had for years with AOL and started over brand new. And I think that's because he couldn't entirely erase the things that he needed to erase in order to start all over with the versions he wanted the public to see. So that brings us to your solve of the dragon greeting card. This one you said was a grill cipher, and we can see up here where you said, or where you have made the marks of where that grill cipher fell and the letters that you then used, and those letters you then anagrammed, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And this is really old stuff. So you had me going over some pretty old 20. These are from actually when I made these copies, to do these, they were from 2018. So, so this is early on, but I showed the work, so how people can see, okay, I did this and then I anagrammed it, but I learned a long time ago, make sure you show your work, even though it's not, you'll see AGR Robert K. I was trying that, and Will and Sahara, and I was trying that. That didn't work. But once I got everything together and anagrammed out, do you want me to read the anagram? Because he's saying where he put Donna last.
Yes, I do. And I see that the message starts with a WH. What is the WH?
I believe that's White House.
Okay.
He's sending this to Nixon. So he's saying, attention, White House, Hotel RN, which is not Richard Nixon at this point. It is the nurse, last, be in a big, dull rock at the Y, which I believe I'm trying to say it says 2 a.m., where he had put her around 2 a.m., because she was last seen, I believe, around 1:30, 1:45, and he drags her and puts her there and does something and puts her in, according to him, he puts her in the big, dull rock, the remains.
And that's interesting because we do have solves that are going to come out and identify that rock. And you are correct. We've been there. Good morning, Nolan.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning,
Sorry,
Nolan.
I'm late.
That's okay. We're actually...
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was listening to the broadcast on my phone, but I couldn't get the mic and the camera to work. But I've heard what you guys have done up until now.
Good. We're just now starting to discuss some of the solves, and the one right now that is being looked at. Now, of course, this is the greeting card, or I'm sorry, when is the Have a Blast? Let's see if we can get to that.
It's the dragon card.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see what our time frame. Okay, so April 28th, 1970, he is already predicting then that RN Donna Lass is involved somehow in the Robert Kennedy assassination, and that she is going to die for her participation. Is basically your thoughts, right, Harriette?
Well, that was what I thought. So there's going to be some changes, but he's definitely saying that's the rock where she's at or going to be at. And we went up there, and again, if you're showing what's on the screen that I sent you, I sent these. I tried about 60 times to contact South Lake Tahoe PD, if I remember, dozens of times. I sent more than these faxes that I sent. And after so many times in 2 months, I said, you know what? Obviously, they're not going to respond. So anyway,
yeah.
That's what this says, though. It says where she's supposed to be at that time period, anyways.
Well, then that takes us to the I parked a man in I shot a man in a parked car with a 38, which also has a Z. We call it the Z32 code because there are 32 characteristics. We are also now seeing an introduction of new symbols, which were not found in the previous ciphers. So we can assume that he is evolving, just like I said, he evolved in his communications, where he would write small communications and maybe one of them to begin with, and he'd get bolder and bolder. And before you know it, he's doing triplicate forms. He's making 3-page letters. He has literally grown in his ability to communicate through these messages. And now we're starting to see the cipher codes evolving, so he's hoping to trip people up. And I've reminded people many times that the FBI shows the use of anagrams, substitution ciphers, transposition ciphers, first and last words of a sentence, first, second, or third letter, and last letter of words. And Scorpion bragged about cryptograms, which are going to be images we're going to see here in the future. So this brings us to the cipher solution by Loren Swearingen. You can see his, well, if his website is still even up anymore, on the Z32, this is what he came up with. Go 7 miles, 45 degrees, the North Vallejo Community Center Park, 120 degrees west of the X. Equals the crossing square for the Zodiac. So he said the Zodiac Killer claims the bomb is set and or buried on the west side of the highway intersection, 120 degrees west from the crossing intersection square. Now, I've been back to this particular location myself, and they have now dumped a bunch of debris and asphalt and things into this area. I don't know if their intentions are to build up on this particular piece of land in order to put in an overpass, or what it is their intention to do with it. But I know that they are reconstructing that particular area, and there will literally never be another way to get to that ground level again to do any verification. He said the yellow
location, isn't that
Green
location
Valley
like
Road?
right off Green Valley Road by the intersection of 680 and 80? Yeah,
yes,
I've been by
absolutely.
there too.
And you see the changes that they're making, right? It was shortly after he came out with this solve, all of a sudden I drove by and they have dumped asphalt and pavement and all kinds of debris there that was literally built up like a mountain. So like I said, I'm not sure if they're preparing to, build and pack that up so that they can use it for some type of off-ramp or on-ramp. But either way, that particular area that he is talking about is now covered, and you will not be able to verify any of this information. But he said the yellow line depicts 7 miles at 45 degrees from the North Vallejo Community Center to the major crossing highways. And that's what you just said, Nolan, the major crossing of the 680 and the 80, right there at the end of, it's right there actually between Fairfield and American Canyon Road, or you're off to, exit to Napa. So he said that the indicated area is approximately 120 degrees west of the main intersection of Highway 80 and 680. Ooh, you were ahead of me, Nolan. Have you been watching my presentation without me?
No, we talked about this years ago, and I went and scoped it out. And my next step was going to be to check the bus records back and at that time period to see if there was a bus route along Green Valley Road.
There would have been. There absolutely would have been. We can see right here that this is the old version before they dumped everything that I said they dumped in there. So you basically would come off of 80 here, and then you could go back up and over the freeway onto Luther. Looks like Luther Boulevard or something to that degree. Either way, this one over here is the Green Valley Road that runs along the freeway, and this entire area has now been filled completely in. I also wanted to point out,
is it possible?
Yes.
Well, is it possible that since we're talking about a bus route, right, to go from there all the way down to where Jack had his dark room in the San Jose? Because that's what I'm coming up with a lot lately.
Well, 80 runs directly into, other freeways that connect into San Jose area.
Okay, so
from where I'm at, I would take 80.
Right? Because he might be saying that he was also staying there, and then he's got the dark room in off of 280 and 101 in San Jose. So
well,
anyway,
I think the Vallejo Community Center would also be a place he likely could have parked the makeshift house or bus that he was driving. That would be a place that he could post up and stay for the night. It's very close to Lake Herman Road, which also has a visitor section, which you and I visited with a telephone booth in it. The things that we know the Zodiac would be interested in. Now, Loren went on to find other messages as well by turning the symbols different directions, I believe, or anagramming them in a different way. So his secondary message says, I have gotten off CIA assistance. I am Jack W. Terrence. Now, of course, when you look at what he's put together, the IV is I have, the gotten is GOTON, and off, of course, CIA help, am Jack W. Torrance. Now, the interesting part about this is that this is a whole new cipher, but the name Torrance is pretty much being spelled exactly the same way it was in the 340. So I think there is a good cross connection there for that to actually be something he was able to derive more than once. So we're looking at this name twice now. The tertiary message he said was JWT off CIA assistance. I had gotten on MK Ultra, but he's saying now he is off. Now, the quaternary message that he came up with was expedite forward to John Faggio, MK Ultra, CIA at Dow Inc., which Loren believed was Dow Chemicals, and they may very well be the persons or entities that is making the LSD or the other drugs that the military is using in the MK Ultra project. And I think that was kind of Loren's belief. But he had also another quaternary message that said expedite to CIA Field Agents Group Intelligence Operations Department of Defense from JWT Jack W. Terrence, basically concerning and or against MK Ultra. So can you tell us who John Faggio is?
Yeah, it's
you don't know.
You have no idea. You have no idea how close you are really, because there's more. There's so much more I'm to send you in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, anyway, but do you know who John Faggio is? Faggio or Fazio? Do you know who this person is?
Oh my God, I used to know, but it was somebody very, very important in that field. He's trying to come up with that he's finding the cure or trying to find the cure for what's going on with MK Ultra. We'll just stick to that because it was really bad. These people had conspired to turn people like Jack into like programmed robots, under this drug.
Well, so, and I know that Loren puts in here that the legal disclaimer, there is no evidence that Dow Chemical was ever a participant in MK Ultra. However, I highly doubt there would be any evidence. The 30,000 documents that got misfiled that even allowed the public to become aware of this actual program was accidentally misfiled in the wrong place. So literally speaking, I don't think that you would actually find someplace where Dow Chemical was ever admitted to having been, but we do know there was
Monsanto, something like that. But was Dow Chemical? Refresh my memory. Is Dow Chemical in the Michigan area?
I'm not sure.
Do we know? Because there's a lot going on. Okay, because that would actually make more sense too. Because there's so much secrecy, but there's the way Jack did his code stuff. It's always been hiding in plain sight. So Loren Swearingen is coming up with what he's coming up with using a digraph system of Jack's, and then I'm coming up with a lot of things. But it's just in a weird way coming together all these years later. God.
Well, what was interesting is that I had actually done a map of Chestnut Street and Telegraph Hill Boulevard in San Francisco. Both these locations were known to be safe houses for MK Ultra. On into Lombard Street in Chestnut, Green Lane in Mill Valley, Hamilton Air Force Base, and Bohemian Grove. And when I made that route, you can kind of see it here on my map. I know you can't, Harriette, but I know you can, Nolan. It literally is a straight shot up through the valley
like a
of all of these. Yeah, like a radian line. But going the wrong, well, I guess it could be going any direction. Okay. But I thought that was extremely interesting. So you also, Harriette, came up with Expedite F to John Faggio, MK Ultra CIA at Dow Inc. So you had your own solve, in which case you came up with pretty much the same thing in 2014, right?
Yeah. So
I remember you telling me about John Faggio.
Keep going. Sorry.
No. I know that at that time you knew who John Faggio was and what he played. He may be somebody in the CIA or at Dow Inc. I mean, it could literally be going in either direction, or a major player in MK Ultra.
The
now
LSD
you have this
stuff. The main company that started doing LSD for the CIA was a Swiss company, and later there were American companies. I'm not sure if it was Dow or Monsanto, but American companies did learn how to manufacture it too, and the CIA switched over to them because it was a lot easier.
Correct. And I did a little bit of reading on it, but of course, you never really know what's being put out there to be truth or not. And I don't want to just repeat things I don't know. And that's why I love you guys for your history and the things that you know. So now you have this one, Harriette,
San Francisco, so I should know something about. I have friends who did the LSD. I never did it, but so I have that perspective. Being from San Francisco, a lot of stuff that was going on as a kid amongst hippies. But anyways, keep going.
Now you have this secondary message, which was, what was that, Nolan?
Well, I can neither confirm nor deny any of my alleged hallucinogenic use.
Spoken like a true attorney. No, I'm sorry, spoken like a true defense attorney. Harry, you came up with one that said that the message revealed, I, Jack, okay, I am Zodiac Jax of Davis, California. Do you remember that one?
That was
Davis, California.
I was just shocked.
Yeah, how did
he was getting some treatment in Davis?
Oh, okay.
UC Davis, yeah.
Was UC Davis available back in 1970?
In the early 1970s, it was, because I went to UC Davis to get my heart fixed, so it was there.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure
the law school, I believe, opened in the 60s.
Oh, okay.
Because I went to law school there.
Oh. So then basically we've got I, Jack, okay, I am Zodiac Jax of Davis, California. So almost as if he's saying he's a project himself.
Yeah. Zodiac, from what I understand, was actually that's where we have a guy named David Sylvie, who I swear was at Dennis's message board just before he died. He was coming out with his book, but there is a book out. It's called Project Artichoke, that Zodiac was another sub-project in the MK Ultra, and it had something to do with who was going to kill the Kennedys, and they were trying to do. It's a really complex book, but it's amazing. And he dies before it was officially published.
Who wrote that?
So, David Sylvie. Yeah, Sylvie, Silvey, I believe. And there was somebody named Dave who was trying to talk about something about Project Zodiac and things of that nature at Dennis's message board, and then he disappeared. But the book comes out a year afterwards. But he dies before the book gets officially published. And those who were working on Sirhan's appeals and all these other things removed documents from the book. It's in the book. I was like, okay, he was touching upon something about Project Zodiac.
Well, clearly, I mean,
yeah.
if Zodiac is a project of the government, CIA, mob, whatever it be, then we are definitely looking at a group of individuals, which is kind of the contention of many Americans, is that the Zodiac wasn't in this alone. So I'm not the only person who thinks this way. And it's just about getting the information to support or substantiate it. So did that book get published? Is that book available?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I got a copy, and I may have tried to send you a copy a few years ago, 2014, I believe, but it is published, and it's choppy, and you'll understand that the reason why it's choppy is the guy dies before it's completely published, and people that were working to try to do things with Sirhan removed documents from the book. So it's missing some fluid pieces in there. But he's also mentioning that Darlene Ferrin is the girl in the polka dot dress. Scary,
really?
scary. That's true. Okay. Yeah, because I did get the book. I have it somewhere.
So he obviously is privy to information that most others aren't. Who is Sylvie? What was he? What did he do?
Oh, he was from what I can recollect, he was in Vietnam, but I believe he was in special forces in Vietnam, some military, and so he had some unique information from his perspective, and so he was trying to get his book published. But he said that he had information that Darlene Ferrin was the woman in the polka dot dress that was a suspect to some certain people years ago. In the death of Bobby Kennedy, and not Sirhan.
Right,
but
right.
A lot of stuff is pulled out of that book. Amazing.
I think everybody with the evidence available can kind of conclude that Sirhan didn't kill anybody.
No.
Yes. He may have fired blanks.
Right.
Yeah, he fired, but he's not the killer. He's involved somehow. Maybe MK Ultra under the spell of this particular drug. That's what I'm seeing so much about lately.
Patsy,
Jack is really screaming
it's
about
highly
that.
likely. It's highly likely that he was under hypnosis as well, and also maybe some drugs. I don't know if it was LSD, but something similar.
Gotcha.
The spell, the hypnotic spell, and oh my God, there's you'll see in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to be sending you stuff, and you're going to be like, "Fuck you, Harriette! Oh my God, I got to do this." But I'm just a code breaker.
I am not sure that I'm going to say that, but okay.
Well, that's what you're going to be shocked, because a lot of things you thought was of a certain year are actually a different year, and it was all in code. And he's screaming at Randolph Hearst, trying to locate something that has to do with MK Ultra and Patty Hearst being under their spell. It's amazing.
Let's talk about that for a second.
We'll stick with this chronological order.
I know, but let's talk.
Understand.
I want to talk about the notion, though, that you just discussed real quick. So basically, throughout the communications, we have seen evidence that the Zodiac's mail moves in a way that isn't typical of standard mail. It gets to places where it shouldn't get to, improperly addressed, improperly postaged. Sometimes it's over postage. Sometimes it's not postaged at all. Neither here nor there. We have this 1990 Christmas card that actually comes out, or it's postmarked 1990, but somehow it sits somewhere until 2007 or 8 when it was discovered.
I believe the story is, and it's coming from me, in case people say that can't be true. Don't say Ray Smith said that. I believe the story is Ray Smith was, going through some things, or somebody was going through some of the files that, were connected to Ray Smith, and they found it. So
gotcha.
There's a Ray Smith connection of files stored somewhere.
Right. So, and we know that a lot of people walked away
coming from me. Okay, so
Right,
you
right.
won't get screamed at by moonlight. So
Well,
I
so
didn't say that,
because of
Harriet
that,
did. Shut up.
because of that notion, you believe that you've started seeing some of these 1970 letters that you think were not even they were projecting 1974. Do I have that correct?
What I'm seeing now is 1970 is actually 1974. Quite a lot of things, but not all of them. So, but in the 1991, he's actually going backwards because I did that one too. He's trying to say something about how he did get
No.
certain
I know. I don't
files
want to
and get
give
these.
that. I,
Yeah,
I don't want to give that information up yet about as
yeah.
to what 1990 says. I'm just trying to make the
Mhm.
relation because when you and I were speaking, you said it appeared as though these 1970 letters were actually from 1974.
Yeah, there's some. He's tripping. I think he's and he's, oh my God, it has something to do with MK Ultra, and Patty Hearst is kidnapped in 1974, February
Right?
1974. That's what I'm starting to see now, that he's trying to talk to Randolph Hearst to be on the case to help find his daughter, but also find something that might be curing her of that spell. And that's what I'm seeing. So it's all in code, and I think some of these weren't supposed to be published until a much
So
later date. But I think, yeah, anyways, that's what people are going to see, the chronological order, thanks to mainly Tom Voigt. He's the one who's led the charge. Or this was mailed, this was published, blah blah blah. And a lot of that we are finding years later. But we were finding this in 2010. You can't trust a lot of that. So, but that, long drawn out explanation. Yeah, there's some. It's all code. Unbelievable.
okay. So gosh, I just lost my chain of thought. I had a good
Sorry.
question there. No, I
You
know, I
can
know.
blame Moonlight on that.
Right? No, okay, so what I'm trying to think of here is that we know that there's a heavy relation to Randolph Hearst. The fact that he is
Hmm.
mailing to all the known newspapers owned by Randolph Hearst. The fact that we see things like on
Hmm.
the desktop poem RH, the relation to Patty Hearst having been abducted, then put under mind control, then robbing a bank, and she was supposedly completely out of it, had no clue what she was doing. I think that the only thing that could cause somebody to do that quickly without having some amount of time to actually control their brain would have to be with drugs or hypnosis or something to that effect, or possibly that it is just another hit at Randolph Hearst because she is kidnapped and used in the same manner in which Jack feels like he had been used for the MK Ultra, right?
Right.
I think
Well, there's a
that's what I'm seeing. But she was put under for 6 weeks, because I'm from San Francisco. I knew people who knew people. I was a teenager at the time. But for 6 weeks, she was locked in a closet, and for 3 days on the weekend only, she was given a particular tea laced with something. That's what I'm understanding.
Hmm.
Or the tea was a drug, and she was
Go ahead.
definitely
All right,
brainwashed.
Harriet, we're on down to our last minute, and I know Nolan has something to say. Go
Okay.
ahead.
yeah, there's a line of thought that says the whole SLA, Civilian Liberation Army, that's who allegedly kidnapped Patty Hearst.
Yeah.
That was an
Hmm.
MK Ultra project as well. The whole thing,
And
Sing
that
2,
would
Yes.
then
the whole
make
bit.
Yes.
that would then make sense that the Zodiac wrote a letter in regards to the February 1974 abduction of Patty Hearst, and he referred to SLA as being the Norse word
Hmm.
for kill a friend. So that is running in
Hmm.
tandem. He writes at the same time she's abducted. So we are now seeing the inclusiveness of the Zodiac, Randolph Hearst, this whole entire political agenda that is occurring, the projects that are happening in the CIA, with Artichoke, MK Ultra, Paperclip, Bluebird, you name it. It's one big, massive front for project after project for them to get what it is that they're looking to do to society and to the public at large.
It's experiments
And
in
they're going
mind and
to do.
behavior control, because mind control
Correct.
isn't enough. The ultimate goal is to control behavior and make people do
Exactly.
things they wouldn't
Yeah.
normally do.
Right, right. All right, you guys. Well, I thank you all again for being here. The solves were absolutely amazing. Hopefully we can come back next week and I can figure out who John Faggio is. So if you can work on that for me, Harriet, I would
I could look it
greatly
up for you.
appreciate it.
I can look it up.
All right, you guys. Well,
It might be
I want
Fazio.
everybody. It might be Fazio. You're right. So Fazio, Faggio, and I know that Loren stated both ways, Fazio or Faggio, but we'll figure out who that is, folks, for next week. Everybody have a wonderful weekend. Have a happy Halloween. Thank you, Harriet and Nolan, for being here. Everybody have a great day, and we'll see you next Friday.
See ya.
Okay.